Often, when you are trying to inspire a student who isn't doing well, you will be met with apathy or worse. So, what can you do to help them realize that they have a deficiency, the deficiency is easily solvable, and that materials are waiting and available to help them solve these problems if only they would take up the time and do what's required? As we mentioned in the previous set, your job is to identify the student need and to help get them on board, or identify the real need once they've told you about a minor issue that they are having. So what if you are faced with a student who is uninterested in change, but is clearly not performing at their best, and cannot be set in a way to adjust the status quo? Remember, education is not a one-touch project, it is a process involving more than one person. Remember, a teacher with a good grasp of their knowledge base, their situation, and experience with what they're doing is not afraid to ask the kinds of probing questions that will get right down to the heart of the issue. A teacher who is unsure of themselves or doesn't want to hear any reasons behind why the student is uninspired, or the student may be acting this way, or the student is failing to lead up to their potential, is afraid to let the student talk. They're afraid to let the student run the conversation so that they can feel confident enough to talk about the real issue. However, a student who feels, just remember that no. A student who is comfortable in their status quo will not want to change. And they definitely won't change unless the need has been uncovered. So, getting them to recognize this need is important. So, how can you make them recognize the need? This is something to take to heart. Do you want to try to make them focus on the need based on grades? Are grades really that important in your program? Something to think about. Now that sounds a little bit silly, but if you have a hands-on tech say architecture, where someone who is able to have a great looking portfolio of work and a degree, people are not really interested in the grades that they have. If someone is working in something like chemistry, where a set of experiments and papers is what's really necessary, grades may not be that important. So focus on that. If they're going to be hired based on their papers and their ability to get published, you might have to talk with a student about buckling down and submitting their work to multiple places. You may have to talk with a student about their research portion of their projects are flawed and they're working with old low-hanging fruit ideas. You may have to talk with them about the presentation of their work, how they have a really good product and a good idea, but they're presenting it so poorly that many people will poo-poo it right out of the gate. Or you may just want to talk about how amateurish things are. They're clearly not spending enough time on their work. One of the things that I will often do when I am talking with students in high school classes is I will tell them to really focus on their SAT scores and studying very hard, because how hard they work in college or in high school has a direct effect on which colleges they can get into if they wanted to, whether they can get scholarships if they want them, or if they're eligible for them. And getting into a good college means you get a good education for a named university. It means you're able to work with schools that have better job placement rate, and in short, has a direct effect on how much money they will get paid. I will often give a similar speech to students in my Web 140 class, give the same talk to people in my Web 140 and typography classes. These intro courses, excuse me, these intro courses have a direct impact on how hard the students work and how much they know on most given subjects. And because of that, those courses, because of that, students who work hard their first time around remember more when they get into those secondary classes. So something to think about there as far as your materials go. Just remember, a student who is satisfied with the status quo but performing low will not make any moves until you point out the need for the move and the disconnect between the amount of work that they're doing and the amount of work that they could be doing and what effect it will have. The questions that reveal the poor performance are probably ones that you've already known. In fact, they're probably ones you've asked students many, 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 many times. And if that is the case, then you already know what you'll be saying. So consider marking down a list of the questions that you typically ask and what, if anything, has managed to get people's attention. These should be practiced, drilled, and used until they sound conversational or at least clean enough that students will sit up and pay attention. While you may have some that you use pretty often, here are a few that you may want to consider using or adapting or considering with your situation. Example questions include: how satisfied with you in the way this semester is going? Or, how pleased are you with the work that you are producing? Or, I see on your last project that you received a grade of whatever, C. I know you can do better than that. What do you think may be stopping you from getting to those good grades that you want? Did everything go correct on your last project, or did something end up getting in the way? Or, over the course of the semester so far, you're consistently pulling a C in this course, but I think you have the ability to pull an A every time. Have you thought about working with somebody to correct this? Or have you ever worked with a study group? Study groups are very popular. No, they're not. What would you change about the way you approached your last project? Are you dissatisfied with the way things are going? How about on the last couple of projects, it seems like you're working really hard, but you just don't seem to be working well enough to get out of the C-level work. Are you dissatisfied enough to take action today? I suppose rather than take action, you might want to say, make a positive change today. Are there other people in the class that you would like to work with? Have you ever considered meeting outside of class with some other students about your work? Did you ever consider what opportunities might be passing you by? I know that you know with great grades come great projects, and great projects come with a great portfolio, and a great portfolio moves on to a great job with great pay. Right now, you're not producing great work. Is there anything that seems to be stopping you from producing great work? Last time, you didn't do as well as you wanted. Why don't you tell me what steps you took to get there? And maybe I can point out a way that you might be able to make a minor adjustment to make this succeed. Is there a decision that you need to make before you can begin making the changes that will help you succeed? The more questions you can ask and the more information you can reveal, the more successful you will be at helping to motivate a student. But again, just remember, if you've pulled out all the stops, if you've asked all the questions, if the student agrees there is a problem, and the student agrees that they should make a change, and the student even agrees that they will make a change, you probably want to remember that, first of all, that's not really on you. The student has to want to change, to make a change. And, even if the student doesn't want to change, but they make the change anyway, that's still not on you. So don't tie the student performance to your opinions, and especially not your opinions about yourself, your opinions about problem solving, or your opinions about your teaching. The student is going to do what the student wants to do. We're just acting with their best benefits in mind. We just want them to succeed. But even if you point out you need to do this to succeed, some students won't do it. They'll need to learn on their own. There are many teachers who will begin by giving the solution to a student, straightforward. You need to spend more time on your work. You need to set aside 8 hours during this week for just going over the Blackboard material, and you need to set aside 8 to 12 hours for homework. And if you don't set aside that time, you will fail. Students don't want to hear that. Frankly, laying the solution out before the student is ready can give you a kind of hands-off pushback that will lead to the student digging firmly into the status quo. Rather than give them the solution early, begin by pointing out the problem, and then pointing out that the student is off balance. Point out that the student can get back on balance and can make a great working solution. Once they have done this, point out the need for change. And it is only when the student accepts that, yes, they are off balance. Yes, they do need to change. Yes, there is a solution that exists, although it may not be easy. Only then will they be ready to hear and ready to make the changes. But the only way to help them get to that point is by ensuring that you have asked the proper probing questions and that the light bulb has gone off in their head. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share this content. Drop us a comment down below, and by all means, please design your future.